Okay, so I know all the attention this morning is going to be on the US and Israel attacking Iran. If you missed my previous video on this, I'll leave a link in the description below. But in this video, I did want to talk about an interview that I saw on CBC, and many of you also sent it over to me as well. It was an interview with Rachel Maddow from MS Now, and she brought up some good points when it comes to the US media, and also how independent journalists are becoming more and more important. But she also did mention that what we're going through right now is the result of the democratic process from the United States. I like the fact that she said that, because she wasn't sidestepping the fact that this is the process, and this is the result. So I want to share this interview with everyone and give my point of view on it as well. I also found this article, and it's titled, American Shame, US Travelers Are Skipping Europe Due to Fear of Being Judged Abroad. Now, I actually just want to share my experience on this, because now that I'm living abroad, I have met a few US citizens here in Malaysia, and I want to share my thoughts and also what they have said as well. So we'll talk about that later in the video. The backdrop for this video comes from Lise, who took this photo from Valcarran, Ontario. I appreciate you sending over all the photos, and it was great chatting with you on Discord. Okay, let's get started with this interview from CBC.
Well, you're one of America's most prominent journalists, prominent voices, and given the tensions between our countries right now, just what are you reflecting on right now in advance of your trip here to Vancouver?
Well, I am. It's a good question. My mom's Canadian. I feel a real kinship with Canada through my mom and through my extended family. But right now, as an American traveling abroad, I feel like we have a lot to answer for. We picked this government, we picked this president through a free and fair election, and the people of this country and all the other institutions of this country, I think, sort of have a responsibility to try to make sure the rest of the world really knows what's going on, and also to know that our government isn't our whole country, and that there's a lot going on in the United States, in U.S. politics right now, about people trying to figure out a way to mitigate a lot of the harms that are being caused by our president. And I'm hoping to talk about that and also hear from Canadians in Vancouver about your ideas for what we can do to try to clean up some of this mess we've got.
Okay, right off the bat, Rachel said right away that the United States had a free and fair election. Now, you can debate that if you want. I mean, there's a lot of people out there that say that, the election was stolen or whatever else. But it is part of the US process. And unfortunately, the results gave us the orange dictator. But what I do like in her comment is that she says the United States has a lot to answer for, because the world has a lot of questions. I mean, I sure as hell do. But it is refreshing to see someone from the US media acknowledging the fact that, yes, it is a United States problem, and not shifting the blame to somewhere else outside their borders.
Well, again, you've said that again and again, the importance of listening, not just talking. Why is that important to you?
Well, I think it's important in life. I think it's also important in the media. With your work at CBC, with my work at MS Now, all of us are in this privileged position where we get to speak into a microphone and have lots of people hear us. Anytime we have the opportunity to make it a two-way conversation, I think it's more valuable. I'm really looking forward to speaking with students, for example, at UBC, before the event next week, and to take questions both from the moderator I'm going to be on stage with, but also from people in the audience. I sort of feel like I'm all ears. We Americans right now, particularly Americans who are opposed to what's happening in our government, I think need all the best ideas we can get from anywhere.
Rachel, I really wish that many of your fellow citizens would listen to this, because I have a microphone, and somehow there's 117,000 people that listen to me. Well, to be fair, I think some of them are here for the cat. But what I'm trying to say is, there's many content creators north and south of the border, and even worldwide, that are trying to give your citizens some advice on how you guys should move forward. But unfortunately, I don't know if it's pride or ignorance or arrogance. Many of the comments that I get back are basically telling me to mind my own business, or I have no right to say anything because I'm not within the borders. But I do commend you on this, Rachel. I just hope some of your fellow citizens follow suit.
So it's important to be listening now more than ever.
We talk often amongst our own team, putting together a daily radio show here at CBC Vancouver about how ever since Donald Trump's re-election, it feels like the pace, just the overall pace of big breaking news has accelerated. It's so ramped up. It's been nonstop. And not only that, it seems like it's more and more difficult to know just what's true, what's not true, what do we follow here. How do you feel that as a broadcaster?
It's very, very present all the time. And I think it comes from a few different places. I think this president and sort of the movement around him have become quite adept at changing the subject, about saying new, transgressive or outrageous or otherwise attention-grabbing things in order to yank people's attention away from things that they don't want people paying attention to. I also think that the president has I don't mean this in an ad hominem way, but compared to other presidents, I think he has sort of strange personal habits. He doesn't go to work until very late in the day, and he stays up very late at night. And sometimes when he's up late at night, he's up making news essentially by tweeting, by posting on social media hundreds of times into the early morning hours. Like, that's just not what we usually expect in terms of the cadence of when news breaks and when a president is doing something that's worthy of paying attention to.
I mean, it's definitely something we're not used to coming from a president. Can you imagine President Barack Obama doing this? Or even George W. Bush going onto the Google and then searching for Twitter and then tweeting out whatever is on his head? If you're not sure about what I mean by George W. Bush saying the Google, let me show you this.
And one of the things I've used on the Google is to pull up maps.
It seems like such simpler times when we were just worried about George W. Bush trying to find Google. Now we have to worry about the orange dictator and what he's going to say on Truth Social. Now, I want to fast forward a bit. This is actually a very long interview, so I'm going to take out pieces here and there. And if you want to watch the whole thing, as always, the link will be in the description below. But I wanted to fast forward to a segment where Rachel was talking about the current state of mainstream media. And this could apply to both north and south of the border.
Let's talk about the search for truth here and the state of journalism. I mean, we've seen the Washington Post gutted, funding cuts at NPR and PBS. There's this overall lack of trust in the media. What would you say to a young person who wants to get into journalism today?
Be nimble. Before this era of again, what I would describe as sort of Viktor Orban-style war on the press. The president and his government are stepping up their attacks on the press to levels that I think compete with any sort of authoritarian regime around the world. The independent press outlets that they can't just intimidate into silence, they are trying to weaken and then have them taken over by the president's oligarchic friends. I mean, it's here. We don't need to be warning about it. We're living it.
Now, to relate it to us Canadians, we know that Post Media, who owns majority of Canadian newspapers, does have a U.S. majority ownership, which does sway the messages in the report. So everything that Rachel is saying right now does apply to Canada. We are not immune to this. Now, I'm going to stop it here, but if you do want to watch the rest of it, I will leave a link in the description below. But I really did want to show this to everyone, because when Rachel did say that this is their democratic process, that's really what it is. Because I've seen way too many comments from US citizens that are saying that the election was rigged, or that there was voter suppression, or that the tech giants caused interference. That might be the case, but it is up to the United States and their citizens to fix the fact that it was rigged, and to fix the fact that the tech giants are playing interference. No one else can fix this problem except the people within the US borders. Now I want to move on to this article that I found. It's titled, American Shame. US travelers are skipping Europe due to the fear of being judged abroad. Now, I'm not going to read out the article. I mean, I'll leave it in the description below if you want to read it. But I actually just want to share two of my stories that I had when I met US citizens living abroad. The first story I've actually shared on my channel before, but I'm going to do it again in case you guys are new to my channel. Now, the first one happened last year when I was at an airport lounge. This photo isn't mine, but it was at this lounge. And I'm pretty sure our community member Kay will know where this is. I was minding my own business and this couple walks in, and on their luggage, they had a Canada flag. And they sat down right across from me. So naturally, I just asked them, I was like, hey, so whereabouts in Canada are you from? Immediately, they looked at each other, and I knew something was up. And then about maybe 4 or 5 seconds later, the husband actually says, well, I really hate to say this, but we're actually from the United States. And right after that, the wife apologized to me, saying that we are really sorry for using your flag. But we just can't stand what's going on right now with our country. And that's why we're traveling. And we're trying to spend as much time as we can away from the homeland because we can't stand what's happening at home. Now, I got the vibe that they were thinking about moving seats because they weren't sure how I was going to react. I had two ways to react. One was with anger because they were using my flag. And second is to show compassion. So what I did is I showed them compassion. I said, it's fine. I don't like it, but I understand your situation. We actually ended up having a really good conversation about what was going on. And I did give them a bit of advice saying that, you know what? Today you ran into a Canadian that did show compassion, but not all Canadians are going to be like me. I said you're probably better off just being truthful. And then, if it comes up in conversation that you are from the US, just do exactly what you just did now. Apologize. So that's story number one. I don't know what happened to him. I don't know if they're still flagjacking or not. But I wanted to share this situation because it does show that some US citizens traveling abroad, unfortunately, they're ashamed of where they're coming from. Now, this next story actually happened more recently, maybe about a month and a half ago, and it happened right here in Kuala Lumpur. Usually on the weekends, what I'll do is I'll go for a walk, plug in my headphones, and just walk and explore. And I was waiting at this intersection across the road. If you don't know where this is the Pavilion Mall. It's one of the biggest malls in Kuala Lumpur downtown area. And this guy taps me on the shoulder, and I got my headphones on, so I take my headphones off, and I was like, yeah? And he's like, are you from Canada? And obviously, I guess my Canucks hat kind of gave it away. Hey, I'm still going to wear my hat, even though my team's in dead last. Anyways, after I said, yes, I'm from Canada, the first thing he says to me is, I apologize for what my country is doing to your country, and I do not support it. Now, I can definitely tell he was from the United States, especially with his accent. But it was not something that I expected, thousands of miles away from the United States in Southeast Asia. So I told him, I really appreciate you saying that, because it does mean a lot to hear that from a US citizen. We had a pretty good conversation after, and I gave him some recommendations on where to go and what to see around the area. But one thing he mentioned before we went our separate ways is that in his travels, I guess he's been traveling quite a bit, if he ever sees a Canadian, he always apologizes to them. Now, I'm not mentioning these stories to say that all United States people are going to apologize, because they're not. I've actually met some pretty rude US citizens when traveling abroad, and I'm sure many of you have as well. But I guess what I'm trying to say is that if you're a US citizen watching my video right now, unfortunately, there is a tarnished image attached to your passport, and it is sad that US citizens feel like they have to apologize. But I would like to think that the rest of the world is understanding, and unfortunately for the United States people, the opening line that you're ever going to have to say is that, no, I did not vote for this guy. So to the US citizens that are watching my video, I hope you don't get discouraged traveling. And in my opinion, just as long as you're honest, and if you're not wearing a red hat, you should be fine. Just please don't jack our flag. That's all I ask. If you found any value or agree with anything that I said, and you want to hear more from a Canadian and international perspective without the US bias, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button below, so that way you're informed of my future videos. Thanks everyone. I'll see you in the next one.